A very beautiful morning to you. This is Bigheart 92.1 FM, Asaba, the station that beats for you. I am Marvelous Acme, and this is the Daily Brief on your number one radio station, Bigheart Radio. So it's August 12th, 2026, beautiful Wednesday morning, and it's a good time for us to check out what the papers have for us this morning. All right, this morning we'll be starting with the Vanguard newspaper. And on the cover page of the Vanguard newspaper today, we have federal government backs regional petrol pricing benchmark for West Africa. Federal government backs regional petrol pricing benchmark for West Africa, and that's on page 22 of the Vanguard newspaper. And also we have Osun decides, that's the mast headline today. Osun decides, candidates talk tough, unveil plans for state. Osun decides, candidates talk tough, unveil plans for state. And that's on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. I am a bulldozer, not afraid of federal might. APC governor says Adeleke. He says he's a bulldozer and he's not afraid of federal might and the APC governors. Also, we have Oyebamiji downplays federal might, vows to banish poverty. Oyebamiji downplays federal might, vows to banish poverty. That's a very huge promise to make to Nigerians at this time. Banish poverty. Wow. Okay. On past governors' achievements, that's coming from Salam. I love the promises that these candidates are making. Really interesting. And I said this several times. I've discussed how election promises make me feel. I love them so much. So let them just keep it coming. Well, the elections are Saturday, the Osun State governorship elections just on Saturday here. So this is the time for the candidates to do all they can to try to win the people over. So you can see all these promises. Adeleke says, I'm a bulldozer and I'm not afraid of federal might. And APC governors, we have Oyebamiji with the big promise of banishing poverty. That's a very huge one. Okay. And then we also have, we'll build on past governors' achievements. That's coming from Salam. All right. Away from that, we have controversy over Senator Fadahusi's comments. Controversy over Senator Fadahusi's comments. That's on page 13 of the Vanguard newspaper. And we have incitement. Can PFN NHRC Kwankwaso knock Sheikh Jingir? Incitement. Can PFN NHRC Kwankwaso knock Sheikh Jingir? And it's on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. And it says underneath that NHRC asks federal government to arrest and prosecute Sheikh Jingir for hate speech. And also political choice, not threat. That's coming from Can. It says political choice, not threat. And that's religious division. That is the threat. That's Can speaking. Government should be hard on religious extremists. That's coming from the PFN. Government should be hard on religious extremists. We have divisive statements must be dealt with. That's coming from Kwankwaso, and it's on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. And then we have ASU orders 20 varsities to prepare for strike, gives federal government and states 14-day ultimatum, and that's on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. Okay, ASU orders 20 varsities to prepare for strike, gives federal government and states 14-day ultimatum. I think this 14-day ultimatum is the best time for the federal government to step in and do whatever they must to make sure that the strike action does not happen. Let them just find time to dialogue and then talk about grievances and try to settle. I think it's best it's settled before the strike than to have students just be in school without classes going on because of the strike, or students having to go back home and their academy is paused because of the strike. Okay, I'm one of the lucky few that never actually got to experience strike during my time in school, and I did not go to a private university, if you're wondering. Okay, Jonathan's 2015 sacrifices saved Nigeria's democracy, says Nenadi Usman. Jonathan's 2015 sacrifices saved Nigeria's democracy, says Nenadi Osman. And you can find that story on page 12 of the Vanguard. We also have federal government targets 6 flashpoints in new push to end farmers' herders clashes. Federal government targets 6 flashpoints in new push to end farmers' herders clashes. That's on page 7. PDP ADC kick as Cross River pegs presidential campaign ads at 150 million naira and governorship at 100 million naira. Wow. I think for Cross River State, it might be a situation where opposition parties will not have a single poster plastered anywhere in the states, because 150 million naira for permit to have campaign ads around. Oh my God. Well, and then governorship 100 million. There is something that they might fail to understand, that while you're doing this, while you're bringing up this amount, some of these opposition parties might end up paying these fees, and then when they do, this is money that's probably gotten from maybe donations, campaign donations, or they are paying out of pocket, and by the time they get into office, they are spending a whole lot of money. But we can see it, because sometimes I feel they are all trying to recoup first. They're trying to get back all the money they spent during campaign, during the election season, all of that. We already know the kind of democracy that we practice in Nigeria, where we practice kola nut democracy. You cannot invite 100 Nigerians to come listen to you if there is no promise of them getting something at the end of the day. So I don't know if it's wrong of me to call it kola nut democracy, but we have this culture of presenting kola nut. You cannot meet your elders without kola nut, and then after the kola nut, you have to even wage the kola nut, how we say it here in Delta. And then just imagine you have to organize these campaigns, and you always have to present kola nut and wait, because most Nigerians would not even be there for you. And the ones who would be there for you, your loyal supporters, they are doing that with hopes that when you win, you will somehow find job for the boys to settle some of them. So these are the issues. So if this happens, at the end of the day, this still means more cost of governance, because they're trying to get back the money they spent during election. This is just my opinion, okay? And it's on page 12. You can read up more on that on page 12 of the Vanguard newspaper. All right, we have Reform Tinubu projects $50 billion revenue to unlock offshore investment. That's on page 30. Reform Tinubu projects $50 billion revenue to unlock offshore investment. And then we have still on the Vanguard newspaper, infrastructure terrorism, how scavengers wreak havoc on public facilities. Infrastructure terrorism, how scavengers wreak havoc on public facilities. Who are these scavengers? Nigerians like you and I, Nigerians that could be listening to me right now. The scavengers moving around. They move around, and then they are looking for scrap metals. They're scavenging, looking for something. And then sometimes you see them walk into compounds. If you don't ask them questions, they might just move away, just cut away something that's useful to you, because they've met it outside, if your house is not properly secured. And then what happens if you are not there? And then sometimes we hear reports of, something was stolen from this place, or something was stolen from this government facility, and the entire neighborhood or the area has to suffer because of scavengers. And who are these scavengers? Nigerians like you and I, who probably have nothing better to do but to do this. What are we going to do about this? Because this is a growing menace, and I've experienced this several times, where we get reports in my neighborhood that something was stolen, so we have to pay money to replace it, or something happened. It's just too much, okay? There are just so many issues in Nigeria, and we do not want this to move to even a bigger level than it already is. So it has to be tackled. You see some streets, they have signs that scavengers are not allowed. And when you have these signs, you usually see the streets being gated, because they are trying to prevent all of this. So we have to find a way to stop this. We cannot continue to suffer because some persons see taking something that belongs to an entire community as a means of making money for themselves. All right, we have 5% TSC, passengers stranded as unions protest ground flights in Lagos and Abuja. 5% TSC, passengers stranded as unions protest grounds flights in Lagos and Abuja. This is not a very good one. Imagine coming for your flight because you have a meeting somewhere, or you even have a hospital appointment, or you're a student, you're going for exams, you're going for a job interview, you book a flight, you get to the airport and you hear that flights are grounded because there is a strike. This is not a good one at all. The aviation union and the government, they have to find a way to settle this. Okay? And we have 2027. Atiku raises concern over outdated beavers. That's on page 32. Atiku raises concerns over outdated beavers. INEC, take note of Atiku's concerns. Federal government backs regional petrol pricing benchmark for West Africa. And that's on page 22 of the Vanguard newspaper. Okay, so that's it on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Let's quickly head to the Guardian, where it says chaos as passengers, airlines suffer losses from over 80 cancelled flights. And that's on page 6. That's Air Peace versus unions. 2027, ADC unveils Code of Ethics document for candidates and members. And that's on the news, page 3. We have Osun 2026, Adeleke Oyebamiji Salam talk tough of victory. That's on the news, page 3. And federal government recovers 3 billion naira media debts, declares end to unpaid adverts. That's a good one. And that's on the news, page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Also, we have Obasanjo, Jonathan, others seek overhaul of Nigeria's democracy governance structure. And it's on page 6 of the Guardian. ASU prepares 20 varsities for industrial action, issues 14-day ultimatum. And it's on page 4. Nigeria's high debt service draining social infrastructure spending. That's coming from the AFDB, the African Development Bank. And they are warning because these debts that Nigeria keeps accruing, and then they are servicing these debts. The monies that we're supposed to use to develop the country, they are being used to service these debts. That's basically what the AFDB is saying. All right, and then we have Orire abduction. Oyo probe panel seeks public evidence as DSS releases artisan, and that's on page 5. And we have UBEC urges states to deploy unutilized 332 billion naira education development fund, and that's on the news, page 7. All right, moving on to the Punch, we have Osun election, 10 battleground local governments that may decide Adeleke Oyebamiji race. That's on the Punch newspaper. We have Fubara lawmakers battle stalls Rivers 1.85 trillion naira budget. Okay, and then we have no difference worth breaking Nigeria apart. That's coming from Tinubu. He's saying that there is no difference that is worth breaking Nigeria apart. Passengers stranded as unions ground Air Peace flights. That's also on the Punch. Obasanjo Obi demand major shake-up of democratic institutions. Obasanjo Obi demand major shake-up of democratic institutions. All right, we have 224 dead, 700 injured as powerful earthquakes rocks Colombia. Okay, that's all from the Punch. Quickly, let's take the Nation newspaper. On the Nation newspaper, we have Tinubu seeks stronger global action against insecurity. Tinubu seeks stronger global action against insecurity. And then we have a movement of cattle to be curtailed with 6 ranches. Movement of cattle to be curtailed with 6 ranches. And that's also on the Nation. And then we have government policy to unlock $60 billion deep offshore investments. All right, and that's it on the Nation newspaper this morning. Yes, because on the Daily Brief, we're here to keep you abreast with what's happening in Nigeria and Delta states at large. So we have a report here that says that Delta's peace economic growth enhanced by security collaboration. That's coming from Governor Oborewori. And it says Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborewori has urged the newly appointed General Officer Commanding 6th Division, Nigerian Army Port Harcourt, Major General Everest Okoro, to sustain proactive security measures and collaboration with other security agencies to protect lives, property, and critical economic assets in the Niger Delta. Oborewori gave the charge when he received Okoro, who is also the Land Component Commander, Joint Task Force South-South Operation Delta Safe, on a courtesy visit to Government House, Asaba. The governor described the peace in Delta to be largely dependent on the result of sustained collaboration between the state government and security agencies, stressing that the state's strategic position as a major oil-producing state made its security crucial to Nigeria's economic stability. And earlier, Major General Okoro said the visit was part of his familiarization tour of military formations and units under his command, following his assumption of duty, as he commended Oborewori for what he described as purposeful leadership and strong support for Delta's security architecture, particularly in the areas of infrastructure, welfare, and economic development. Well, that's about the size of our package on the Daily Brief this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. It's been marvelous acting. Don't go away. Music and more music will be coming your way. But trust me, something better is cooking. Yes, something great is cooking. So don't touch that dial and keep listening to Bigheart 92.1 FM Asaba.